All right, so this is section 8.7, factoring special cases. So problem of the day, we are going to simplify this polynomial. So here, 3x squared y can be combined with negative 15x squared y. So that would be negative 12x squared y. And then 9x can be combined with negative 4x. So that would be plus 5x. So today we are learning about factoring special cases. You will know you are successful when you can list factors of numbers, you can identify A, B, and C from an equation, and you can factor. So we have spent all week talking about factoring, so these are just special cases. If you remember back to when we talked about multiplying and then multiplying special cases, you can just ignore this today and factor like normal. There's just a couple special tricks that you can kind of do and recognize, and one thing that I do expect you to recognize. So of course, factoring is the opposite of multiplying, so we're going to warm up by practicing our multiplying because I don't want you to forget how to do that for your test next week. So difference of squares. So that means I have x plus 4, x minus 4, right? So x times x is x squared. X times 4 is negative 4x. 4 times x is 4x. And 4 times 4 is negative 16. We can, of course, combine those middle two terms, and negative 4x plus 4x cancel out. So we're just left with x squared minus 16, and that is our first trick. Your b term is equal to 0. So here, of course, our first step is always to check for a GCF. You don't always have it. And then you can look for a difference of squares. Like if you recognize that this is a perfect square and so is 9, then you can look for that. If yes, then you know it's just going to be like 3 and 3 if it's 9, or 5 and 5 if it's 25. Then, of course, you can check by multiplying like this. Double check this. If you don't want to do this, then of course you just find your two numbers that multiply to AC and add to B. And then you have your two parentheses, just like normal. Okay, so looking at this first one, I'm going to do this AC and B method. So here my AC, your B term is, remember this is the standard form, right? AX squared plus BX plus C. B is always attached to the X. So this is my A and my C. So my AC is negative 9 and my B is 0. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 9 and add to 0. So here that would be 3 and negative 3. So my two parentheses are X plus 3, X minus 3. On this next one, I'm going to do the trick, right? So there's no GCF, and I'm recognizing that 4 is a perfect square and so is 25, and my B term is 0. So because of that, then I'm going to take the square root of 4, which is 2. So we have 2x minus the square root of 25, which is 5, and then 2x plus 5. Okay. Again, if you recognize that, great. If you don't, also totally fine. So I'm just going to do a couple of these examples because I think you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. So I'm going to do the trick for this one. So I recognize that v squared is a perfect square and so is 100. So I know that I have v minus 10, v plus 10. Let's jump to this one, or let's do this one. So if I have here my AC is 81 times 16. Sorry, I'll pull my calculator. 81 times 16. 1,296. See, this is why sometimes this trick is better. So B is 0. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 1,296 and add to 0. Let's try dividing it by. Oh, I happened to get it on the first try. It's 36 and 36. Okay. Oh, it should be negative 36. So then I'll have 16x plus 36, 16x minus 36. And of course, they can both be simplified. Everything's divisible by 4. So I'd have 4x plus 9, 4x minus 9. Let's jump to this last one. And I noticed that this has a greatest common factor of 6. So 24 divided by 6 is 4, and 6 divided by 6 is 1. Good. Now I can factor what's on the inside. So my AC on the inside is -4, and my B is 0. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to -4 and add to 0, which is 2 and -2. So I'd have 6, 4g plus 2, 4g minus 2. Of course, everything is divisible by 2. So I have 6, 2g plus 1, and 2g minus 1. That's a parentheses and a 1. Good. So that is factoring difference of squares. And then we have one more, and it's a perfect square trinomial. So that means I have x plus 5 squared, which, so you're going to get the same thing twice. So this is x plus 5 times x plus 5, which is x squared, 5x, 5x, and 25. Of course, we can combine those middle two terms, which is x squared plus 10, x plus 25. So if you remember, it's a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Okay, so that's what it's going to tell you to look for in the trick steps, right? So factor out GCF, always our first step. Is there a square in the front and back, right? Like x squared is squared, 9 is perfect square, right? It's 3 squared. Does the middle term equal 2 times a times b? Oh, I'm sorry, 1 is perfect square. So 2 times 1 times 6 is 12. So if the middle term equals 2 times a times b. Oh, this not this a and b, this a and b. So it's a little different. And then if yes to both, then you're going to factor. So I would just do like normal. Our AC is 9, our B is 6. So two things that multiply to AC and add to, or multiply to 9, add to 6 would be 3 and 3. This B right here. Sorry, got confused there for a second. So then we have x plus 3 and x plus 3. I would expect your answer to be x plus 3 squared. Okay, instead of writing it twice, I do expect your answer to be x plus 3 squared. Okay, let's do this one. So my AC here is 100 and my B is -20. So two numbers that multiply to 10 and add to -20 would be -10 and -10. So I have 4x minus 10 squared. Since they're both the same, I know I can just put squared. And of course, we can simplify by dividing by 2. So I have 2x minus 5 squared. Good. Let's do a couple of these examples down here, and then you can work on your homework. So here, my AC would be 4 times 9, which is 36, and my b is negative 12. So two numbers that multiply to 36 and add to negative 12 would be negative 6 and negative 6. So I'd have 4n minus 6 squared, and because they're both the same, I know I can just square it. This, of course, can be simplified, so we have 2n minus 3 squared. This one is very similar, so I'm not going to solve this one. So let's jump to that last one. So here my AC is 49 and my B is negative 14. So two numbers that multiply to 49 and add to negative 14, negative 7 and negative 7. So I would just have x minus 7 squared. Just real fast, I want to point out one difference between the two. For this one, we get negative 7 and negative 7, and up here we get a positive and a negative, so 2 and negative 2. So we cannot write this one from the top using a squared. You can only write it down here when they're exactly the same factors. So that is the difference between the two. Okay, good luck on your homework.